Hey, hi. This is just me reading my book, putting in effort to finish this book. I figure by reading it, it'll help. Very rough draft. Brian lay there the first night, dozing in and out of sleep, his mind drifting to memories of his family vacation to Mexico years back. Virgin pina coladas by the pool, all-you-can-eat buffet, little flea markets close by to blow his allowance on. Painful, he thought, before he finally conked out. This time, alone is going to be painful. Chirp, chirp, said the 4 a.m. bird. Brian woke up angry, then fell back asleep, only to wake up pleasantly surprised by the sun shining on his face. I feel bad for that pilot and his whole family. Matter of fact, I'm going to send up a quick prayer for him right now. Brian dipped his head in the morning glow, sitting with his back against a big sturdy tree. Kind of hungry, he decided. It was time to get up and have his pee and see what was salvageable among the wreckage. I need to get out of my comfort zone. A random feeling came over him, tailgating from stuff going on in his life in the city before the crash. With this shot of random energy and inspiration, he stripped down to his skivvies and hopped in the foggy water. Under he went, even though he was unprepared for it. His thoughts weren't perfect as to feel proper before taking the plunge, but he did it anyway. He blasted out of the water feeling incredibly refreshed and almost wanted to blurt out, "I'm doing something with my life." All the while, his conscience was still reminding him that only 400 feet away is a deceased pilot sitting in the cockpit of a tattered bushcraft. As he began swimming, feeling quite confident and comfortable, seeing how he was an avid fisherman on little lakes like this, he noticed some sort of black cloud, a swarm, flying through the air, the opposite side of the plane. Please be honeybees, he thought as he feared a swarm of anything else. Slightly distracted, he kept pushing forth, pushing the water along his sides like a frog. Finally, feeling like a man, he reached the plane. Brian couldn't deny this entrepreneurial feeling deep down during this situation. Imagine how much I could impress people with this story. Imagine the little life I can piece together for myself while I'm here. Almost feeling guilty for having such hero-like fantasies, he wasted no time on entering the plane and quickly noticed it was lodged onto a deadhead in the water. A deadhead is a tree that's in the water, barely poking above the surface. Feeling secure, he began investigating the plane. Life jackets floating in his face, some bottles. "Aha, a first aid kit," Brian announced as he saw it strapped to the back wall. "Tools, tools, tools," he said as he unstrapped the kit. He began pushing everything that floated to the far side of the plane, planning on making a little raft to float his treasures back to shore. He decided he was going to be very brave and forthcoming about handling the pilot's body. He wasted no time in getting up close and personal. Brian originally planned to pull the body out and bring him to shore for a proper burial, but something came over him. It was as if God was telling him to relax and just leave the pilot where he was. Besides, Brian, you don't want to attract predators with a deceased body. He clasped his hands together and said a quick blessing over the man and got back to work. He tied the life jackets together and began tying the first aid kit onto the bunch when he heard a loud bang. It was his head. He hit his head hard against the sheet metal. His forehead started bleeding, and ashamedly his first thought was, maybe sharks will get him, but he quickly forgot about that and thought about stitches. The first aid kit actually had a little mirror in it, and after a quick inspection, he decided he wouldn't need stitches, but still had to bandage it up. He felt the almost disturbing peace while in the midst of all this. Shouldn't I be all distraught and stressed out, he thought. Perhaps he was experiencing some peace of independence, having to survive out here on his own, without his parents or siblings. He kept his hands together around his face and dunked his head. The air trapped by his hands allowed him to make goggles, so he could see underwater. Alas, he thought, he could see his bag lodged under the pilot's seat. After he grabbed his bag, he calmed down and decided he was going to go do a thorough search of the craft to get everything he could possibly fit on the raft. He was calm and good at examining, but the bandaging on his forehead was causing water to leak into his goggles. He remembered at that instant the pilot telling him after his trip up to North Casbah he was going to head straight to Mexico to enjoy some world-class scuba diving. Brian felt an exciting anxiety in this moment and looked feverishly for the pilot's bag. Sure enough, the pilot's bag was found near the very back of the plane, jammed up in the netting. This was going to take some breath to retrieve, but Brian was determined. He very calmly took a deep breath and went underwater. He swam down to the broken back half of the plane. A little rush of adrenaline hit him when he struggled to get the bag free, but he did get it. With ease, he swam back up and grabbed onto his raft, standing on one of the seats. He searched the bag feverishly and found not just goggles, but a snorkel too. This will come in handy. His raft was at maximum capacity with the 2 bags, so he decided he'd take the long swim home. At this point, he was now cold. His feet were starting to go numb, but he pushed on. Again like a frog, but this time with the raft. Magic flooded Brian's mind as he walked up to his remarkably nice beach. Looked at the tree where he spent the night. Imagine if they found me as a spearfishing alpha caveman. Imagine how cool I would look. More thoughts that Brian considered intrusive because of how silly they were. He smiled, though. At least I have an imagination. Brian knew that if he was anywhere near Casbah, he had to be vigilant of black bears. I'll start a fire. Maybe the smoke will keep them away. The first aid kit actually was well equipped with survival amenities. Pain started growing in Brian's heart, like the type of pain he thought of before he fell asleep last night. 50% of every day is pain. I've known this for a while, he thought as he sat there. The magic Brian was feeling started to fade. He started to feel pain. Then suddenly a bee stung him on the butt. Ow, he exclaimed, getting up off the life jacket raft, jumping and prancing around like the Keebler elf. He grasped his buttocks and nodded his head. Now this is real pain, he couldn't help but think as he was enduring the experience. I forgot about the bees, he thought, as they brought a sense of magic back into his situation. Bees, at least I know for sure they are honeybees. Yum, honey, he thought in a Homer Simpson voice. Starting to get hungry now, he dug deeper into the survival pack to find a flint block. Now to gather firework. Tough times don't last, tough people do, he said to himself while he duct taped a knife to the end of a stick. Time to gather wood. He was situated on a little peninsula that allowed wood to be pushed onto shore. Much of it wet, he lugged it over to the beach site. His teenage mind quickly fantasized about having a bikini beach party, where he was the center of attention. But this fantasy faded as his butt started to hurt again. He limped around in a 400-meter radius of his site, grabbing every bit of firewood that he could. Centered, he said aloud. I need to be centered. Perhaps I should focus on being the most centered person by the exact middle of the rest of my life. Now feeling centered, Brian could not help but think about food. He wished it was easy to spear fish, but he knew it was going to be a daunting task. At this point, he realized how incredibly thirsty he was. He was tempted to drink straight from the lake, but he was paranoid, so he grabbed a pot from his bag, filled it with water, then decided it was time to start a fire.